as we talk about transition, when COVID hit, rugby kind of reset itself. The game changed. I think forever. I think New Zealand, Australia in particular, were hit by that more than any other nations in the world, being so isolated down the end of the world there. And during that period, Super Rugby radically transformed. I think for 2 years you only played within your nations. You had Super Rugby Aotearoa and Super Rugby AU. And the South Africans were lost forever. We think forever at this point. Who knows what the future holds? How do you think that's changed the way Kiwi players develop over the last, since 2020? Like not having those regular matchups with South African Super Rugby teams, like losing the South African teams to the north. Because I know as a Welsh fan, seeing the URC, my God, it's such a better product with these South African teams in there. I know the travel is hectic. I know that was always a compromise for having these guys in our leagues and stuff, but my God, I know Ireland and Scotland in particular have benefited from having the Sharks, Stormers, Bulls in the URC. Like, what do you make of South Africa leaving Super Rugby and what it's done for New Zealand and Australia player development as a whole?
Yeah, I think it's had a massive impact on the player development, because without South Africa in Super Rugby, the gap between Super Rugby and Test level, which was once probably an easier step up, you're noticing guys that are probably not your core players are struggling to make adjustments from Super Rugby into Test level, because their form in Super Rugby is, I wouldn't call it artificial, but it is harder to gauge, because the step up between Super Rugby, which has come down since COVID, the gap between Super Rugby and Test now is so much higher. We used to be able to fill that by having great physical matches in Super Rugby, and also the travel included in that as well. New Zealand and South Africa is quite a journey, but that gap between Super Rugby and Test level has got bigger since South Africa left, which has made the adjustment for the All Blacks probably that much higher. It's not a slight on Scott Robinson, but to make that jump from Super Rugby up to Test level probably showcases just how hard that is for not just players but for coaches now. And you have to spend more time in different environments in order to become that better player throughout the course of a year, not just in tests. And you see individuals like sabbaticals are super popular now. Guys giving up playing Super Rugby, like Rico Ioane's just done it, and we're looking forward to him coming back a better player. Jordie Barrett did it last year with great success, going to Leinster, and has come back and is now probably the top 12, or if not one of the two top 12s in the world. So guys looking for opportunities outside of Super Rugby, which kind of speaks to the level, but also what people want from the game of rugby outside of being on the field.
Yeah, I completely agree, man. I think it's the variety that you've lost in the kind of games that you would have at club level as well. I think this is where sort of Ireland, maybe Scotland to a lesser extent, and also the French have really closed that gap on the Southern Hemisphere. Because you look at the top 14, the different styles of play, it's a very attritional league, but you've got teams like Toulouse and Bordeaux are all flair. You've got other teams like Montpellier who had real success making the final this year with a big forward pack rather than, that expansive style of game. And I think not having South Africa there for the physical side of the game, because that's where it changes to test level. I don't think you get that out of the Aussies as much. Even losing the Jaguares as well in 2020 when they left, it added something different. And it's also the touring element as well. Like these long tours that you get overseas down in South Africa for weeks on end, you get to spend more time with your players in camp. You get to build these better bonds with each other. And I think they've certainly lost a lot of that. I know Jordie Barrett, before he went to Leinster, he was talking about how much they miss going to South Africa in Super Rugby. And as you said yourself, man, his game has come on leaps and bounds by being in Leinster. Like, that was, I wouldn't say he was the greatest overseas signing for Leinster ever, because that goes to Isan if they were. But my God, he had a huge impact. But also the development of the younger guys around Barrett at Leinster, they came on leaps and bounds. There's a guys like Tommy O'Brien and Jamie Osborne. Their games went to another level alongside Barrett as well, and I'm pretty sure Rico's had the same influence as well. Which brings us to another point. Like, New Zealand have been very stubborn on not selecting overseas players. There's a bit of I don't know. I think it's very political because the guys who are on sabbatical get to jump right back in, but then the likes of Richie Mo'unga won't be on this tour unless there's an injury, because he hasn't played one game for Canterbury. It seems just nonsense to me and very political. And these guys are getting, you can clearly see these guys are getting way better from their time abroad as well. And I think New Zealand rugby maybe needs to modernize their approach to this, because it's definitely been one of the reasons for, I think, the gap being closed.
Yeah, I definitely, I understand both sides of the argument on this one. My preference would be to let guys that have played a number of caps have the ability to go play abroad. Obviously, it's going to, if you were to open it up to everyone, it might dilute the talent pool and people coming through, and then we're all of a sudden wrestling with like the aura of the All Black jersey and whether that still stands. Yeah, I would like to see something change in the club level, which makes it a bit more of a global game rather than the New Zealand teams just playing each other or playing in the Super Rugby competition, where the real incentive to stay is to play for the black jersey, whereas what people want as rugby players is the ability to make rugby work for them from a lifestyle perspective. A lot of them choose to go play overseas for more money, a chance to see the world with their young families or as a young rugby player. And I think New Zealand is going to have to make some different decisions around like what criteria is in place. The Richie Mo'unga not being able to play for the All Blacks in August until he's played for Canterbury. Same for Shannon Brazil. That is pretty stupid, and I think that has to change. If they're signed a contract to play for New Zealand rugby for the foreseeable future, then you should be automatically eligible as soon as that pen has gone on the paper and they're not going back. You want to pick your best players. He's going to play for New Zealand anyway. What does one game at club level mean to his eligibility? It's pretty archaic, and that definitely needs to change.